Peter Power, Canadian Press. The direct economic impact from the U.S. metal tariffs and Canada's retaliation, either in terms of economic activity or inflation, are expected to be small. Jean-François Perrault, chief economist at Scotiabank, expects a maximum 0.1 percentage point hit to growth, and less than 0.1% on inflation. By Josh Wingrove, Stephanie Murata and Theophilos Argytis, Bloomberg News. From mustard to motorboats, Canada's about to fire back against Donald Trump on its national holiday. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will mark Canada's 151st birthday Sunday by imposing tariffs on about $19.4 billion, $14.6 billion worth of U.S. imports in response to American levies on Canadian steel and aluminum that went into effect a month ago. Ad choice advertising and Red invented by Tees. Start your day with the news you need from the Bay Area and beyond. Sign up for our Morning Report weekday newsletter. While the tariffs alone are unlikely to derail Canada's expansion or boost overall inflation, they add to the growing tension between two of the world's biggest trading partners. Talks over a new North American free trade agreement have stalled, and Trump has threatened to impose additional duties on autos. Canada, meanwhile, is preparing fresh duties as early as next week on non-U.S. steel imports to prevent dumping. It's regrettable that we have to engage in this kind of tit-for-tat trade war, but it's been forced on us by Mr. Trump, Toronto-based trade lawyer Lawrence Herman said in a phone interview. Canada has no choice but to respond in accordance with the rules of international trade. Trudeau will lead the Canada Day festivities by visiting a pair of trade battlegrounds Sunday, a southern Ontario town near the U.S. border, once famous for Heinz ketchup, and a steel mill in Saskatchewan, meeting with workers in each. Trudeau's proposed tariffs on U.S. goods cut a broad swath from steel and aluminum to whiskeys, mustard, toilet paper, washing machines, motorboats, even maple syrup. The duties will be 25% on steel and 10% on everything else. The final tariff list is scheduled to be released this week, along with measures to support the domestic steel sector. The tariffs are overwhelmingly popular in Canada, according to most polls, but come with unease as prices may rise on hundreds of goods. Scott Brundle, dealer principal for sales at Town. It will dramatically affect our business, Brundle said, adding that inventory levels are lower than he'd prefer as he cuts orders and works with suppliers to find ways to make sales viable. U.S. manufacturers that sell in Canada include Larson Boats of Minnesota and Brunswick Corp. of Lake Forest, Illinois. "We're gonna kick the can down the road," Brundle said. "We'll get some inventory in here to fill the showroom up, and pay the tariff to have them on display, and then we'll take orders. From there, what we charge on the orders, I don't know." The tariffs could add $10,000 to the cost of a wakeboard boat from Malibu Boats Inc. of Tennessee. Brundle has 3 of them on order for July. So do the math. It's going to be $30,000 to $40,000 cash in tariffs on those 3 boats, he said. Still, the economic impact of the latest tariffs fight is minimal compared with a pair of other looming Canada-U.S. trade issues, potential auto tariffs, and threats to end NAFTA. Trump and Trudeau have clashed recently, with the president warning Canada will pay for it. "If they said tomorrow those auto tariffs are in place, it becomes a meaningful hit," said Mark Chandler, head of fixed income research at RBC Capital Markets. "People are more worried about what happens to autos. Linda Hasenfratz, chief executive officer of auto parts maker Linamar Corp., went further, saying it would be the next and final step to economic disaster. Tariffs are never good, add cost that ultimately hits the consumer and therefore hammer the economy, she said, adding that U.S. metal tariffs are already raising costs for the auto industry that will ultimately lead to layoffs. Linamar's stock fell to a 14-month low in Toronto Thursday. There are mixed views on how quickly Canada should proceed with its retaliation. Canada's biggest steelmaker, a unit of ArcelorMittal, has warned 1,000 direct jobs are at risk from the U.S. levies. Ken Newman, the United Steelworkers National Director for Canada, told lawmakers this week he was very concerned that the Canadian industry has already been harmed by the one-month delay. But others worry the government is moving too fast. Domestic steel construction companies across the country are anticipating price hikes from Canada's retaliatory tariffs, as competition and supply of steel in the market continues to drop. We saw the U.S. prices go sky-high, which had an impact on pulling Canadian prices up, said Tim McMenamin, vice president at Ferrostall Steel Canada Inc., a rebar importer. Retaliatory tariffs will push prices even higher, he said. If I had a message for the federal government today, it would be look before you leap, Manitoba Finance Minister Cameron Friesen said in Ottawa during a meeting of provincial finance ministers. It's a view echoed by one business owner during lawmakers' hearings. I believe Trump is a bear. We shouldn't be poking him too much. The bear will start roaring, said Bob Verw, president of Owasco Inc., an auto and RV sales company. The direct economic impact from the U.S. metal tariffs and Canada's retaliation, either in terms of economic activity or inflation, are expected to be small. Jean-François Perrault, chief economist at Scotiabank, expects a maximum 0.1 percentage point hit to growth, and less than 0.1% on inflation. Our sense is that the impact on the economy will be small, but could be substantial for the steel industry over time, said Perrault, adding the outcome of NAFTA negotiations remains the central question on trade for Canada. Steel costs may rise further if Canada follows through on plans to impose tariffs and quotas on non-U.S. imports from China and other countries. The measures may be announced as early as next week, people familiar with the plan said. Finance Minister Bill Morneau said his government will absolutely stand behind companies affected by metal tariffs. Canada also faces risks from the U.S.-China trade dispute. Canada sends 3/4 of its exports to the U.S., so any slowdown in American growth will impact Canada. At the same time, it's a major oil producer and any Chinese slowdown could crimp demand. If you get a major trade war, the probability of recession is real, said Perrault. Bloomberg's Natalie Wong on Christine Oram contributed. 80 Quality Auto 360p 720p 1080p. You might also like why you should apply for the HSBC Advance Credit Card. HSBC Bank Magic Air Cooler takes Europe by storm. The idea is, WiseDailySavings.com air conditioning now finally affordable thanks to NewThingsToday.com. Nice as Samiz has an old world. Patrician Air Mansion global chiropractors baffled. Simple stretch relieves years. HealthHackTips.com new breakthrough in pediatric nutrition. Similac, Abbott family ask Amy, I think something's up between my wife and MercuryNews.com. California porn star Yurzan Beltran died primarily of MercuryNews.com. Melania Trump ditches controversial jacket for her. MercuryNews.com recommended by